It's a new year, so let's talk about my 5 favorite games of 2023. Welcome to Brains on Games. I'm Dr. Brian McDonald. In this episode, we are going to talk about my 5 favorite games, the best games that I played in 2023. Now, I did get to play a lot of games last year. Not every single game, though, so this might not be the all-time best list of the year, but these are definitely my favorites, and we're going to count down from number 5 to number 1. And you might be able to guess which game I'm going to talk about by the gaps on the shelf behind me, because you can see some of these games in the background of all of my videos. Let's kick off the countdown then with my number 5 game of the year.
Number 5.
The first game I want to talk about is actually one that was released late in 2022, but I played it over the Christmas break and recorded a video and posted it early in January 2023. This is a deck building game, and I think it's probably my favorite deck builder from Osprey Games. It is Undaunted Stalingrad. This one has a rating on boardgamegeek of 8.7, and its high score is definitely well-deserved. Like I said, it is a deck-building game. It's my favorite. The other deck builder that I really, really like is Heat, which I actually played just not too long ago. Undaunted Stalingrad is a historically based World War II legacy game for 2 players. It is a deck builder, like I said. You're going to recruit soldiers into your deck. You use the cards in your deck to move the soldiers around the map. And it's a legacy game, like I said. So cards change, cards get removed from the game. Nothing gets destroyed, though. But your soldiers might get killed, or they might get promoted, and you might wind up with better and better cards. And one of the things I really liked about this game is that, well, of course, the outcome of a mission will affect later missions, and they've got scenario books that really it's almost like a choose your own adventure. They really lay everything out for each story. It's thematic, and it is a game that tells a story. You're going to be talking after the game about the sniper that you managed to take out with your rifleman, and those valuable soldiers that you've promoted. You might hesitate to put those into your deck, because if they wind up as casualties, you will not get them back for later missions. So it is just a fantastic game in a giant box that's always right behind me on the shelf. Let me show you what's inside here. Not to spoil anything, right? Because it is a legacy game, and so things do change over time. But this is the insert of Undaunted Stalingrad. It is a great big box, but everything does stay well organized. And I've kind of I reset everything and started the campaign over again with another friend of mine. So I'm not all the way at the end of this one. There's some punch boards, and the scenario books go on top of this, but it closes perfectly. Everything is well organized. These are the map tiles that you'll be playing with throughout the game. So just a fantastic game with mission objectives that affect later missions, and cards that get promoted that are so precious you almost don't want to use them, because you don't want to lose them for later games. So Undaunted Stalingrad is my number 5 game, and if we were just counting up deck builders, it would be my number 1.
Number 4.
Number 4 on my list is one that I talked about actually not too long ago. Early in December 2023, we talked about my 4th favorite game of the year, which is Run from Fowers Games. This one has a 7.6 rating on boardgamegeek, and this is a game that, if you remember, because I talked about it not too long ago, I think that this is hidden movement that's done perfectly. There are a couple of hidden movement games that I played, and they are a kind of game that I don't play very often. But the 2 that I really like, well, this is one of them. I think this is maybe my favorite. The other is Not Alone, which is a very different one versus many hidden movement game. And I also really do like that one too. But this is the one that I played in the past year, and it is a very tense 2-player game. Just like Undaunted Stalingrad, it's a game where you're experiencing some stress because one player is being hunted by the other in this hidden movement game. And a lot of games, you've got Undaunted where you're telling a story, and this one creates an experience for the players, I think, as well, where there is some tension, and it is a game where you're puzzling out where that runner could be, and the runner's puzzling out where he could go without letting the police know where he's headed. I just think that this is a perfect way of doing hidden movement, in that you've got tiles that the runner is placing that might help the other player figure out where they're headed, which way they're going. And it really is a great implementation, a great way of doing hidden movement, I think, because you've got one player who's using movement tiles that eventually will be depleted and then they're exhausted. That makes things much harder for them. The other player is using cards that they can refresh at any time. You've got great tiles, great components. Everything about this game is fantastic. Plus, you've got a difficulty level that's adjustable. There are more advanced maps. And there's a ranking system that allows players to adjust the level of difficulty or to handicap when you're playing with experienced players versus less experienced players. There's even a little envelope of secret parts that you don't get to open until you reach rank 4. So it's a gorgeous game, a tense game, a game that can be a little bit stressful to play, but the difficulty level is adjustable and the ranking system allows good matchups that remain tense between players even if they're at different skill levels. So it's just, if you like hidden movement games, I think I said this in the review, if you like hidden movement games, I can't think of one that's much more perfect than Run from Fowers Games. But what could possibly be my number 3 game of the year if I like this one so much?
Number 3.
My number 3 game of 2023 is a heavier strategy game than the others that maybe I've talked about so far. This is a game that I talked about in August. It comes from Board and Dice, and what we're talking about here is Barcelona. This one has a 7.8 rating on BGG, and it is one that we really liked. It's a game that's gotten pulled out multiple times since I picked it up, and I haven't had any bad reviews of it, honestly, among my gaming group. It's a gorgeous game. You're building a neighborhood in Barcelona. You've got some great action selection mechanisms that are randomized at the beginning of the game so that the pairs of actions you're taking, those are going to vary each game. It adds to the replayability. And sometimes you get cascading actions that have you're doing multiple things by placing the pieces on the board. It's just a gorgeous, fun Euro game that's really a point salad. And I know for some that might be a detractor. I really like calculating out all those big points and taking an action that has a huge impact on the game while at the same time you're building this beautiful neighborhood. I'm showing you the inside of these boxes because usually I don't do that when I'm doing these reviews. And this is a little bit disorganized because it is stored on my shelf vertically. So you've got rule books and the game board. This is a gorgeous game with lots of stuff inside, and we have pulled it out and played it again and again since we got it. Everyone has liked this one. You might notice I didn't fill in all of the challenges that we've accomplished since we started playing the game. So you might be able to see some challenges on the back of the rule book. I didn't write people's names on there because we just wanted to keep playing the game without recording all of that stuff. But I think that's going to be my goal in the new year, is to continue playing this game and maybe record when we achieve some of these objectives on the back of the rule book.
Number 2.
My number 2 game of 2023 is one that actually I do not have. I debated whether should I put this on the list or not. It is a game that I talked about in March 2023. However, it's one that I kickstarted, but it hasn't been released yet. So I did a review of the prototype, but I don't actually have this game in my hands. It should be coming in the next, I think the last update I looked at said it's coming in the next few weeks. And what we're talking about here is Crown of Ash. Crown of Ash is, I think, a brilliant little game that is pretty straightforward and simple to pick up, but it's one that does have some strategic depth at the same time. This is an area control game where you're playing as necromancers who are earning resources by visiting various spots on the game board, and they're spending those resources to raise soldiers that they're going to use to try and take over the other board areas from the other players in the game. So it is a combination of resource management and area control. The area in the center of the board is especially important. You don't get resources from that, but you get tons of victory points. And if a player is able to control that for a few rounds, it potentially could be hard to catch up with them. So you really do need to knock the players out. There's a lot of interaction in this game. And one of the things I really like, what I think is quite a clever mechanism, is that you're placing your soldiers in these areas of the board to defend them from the other players who might be trying to take them over. But if you do get knocked out of those locations, you don't lose all of those soldiers that were defeated because, of course, in this game, you're playing as a necromancer. They come back from the graveyard. Now, all of a sudden, you've got a pile of your soldiers in your hand, and you have the ultimate flexibility of being able to go anywhere on the board with all of your defeated soldiers coming back into play. So it really made it interesting where you're not really able to completely knock a player out. You're spending a lot of resources to get those soldiers, but if you get some good ones, they're going to keep coming back to torment the other players. It's a clever strategy game that's not too heavy, but that's really fun and funny and entertaining. And we had a great time playing it, but I had to send the prototype on to another reviewer, so I'm hoping that this one will be delivered soon, and I'll be able to share with you on Brains on Games when I finally get my copy of Crown of Ash.
Number 1.
My favorite game of the year. What's my number one game of 2023? Well, it's a game actually that I talked about in November. So I picked this up not so long ago in the scheme of things. I feel like this is one that not enough people are talking about. It's got an 8.0 rating on boardgamegeek. So it's the second highest rated in terms of BGG ratings. It's my number one game. It's the second highest. My fifth favorite game had an 8.7 on boardgamegeek. But when we're talking about Undaunted, it is a two-player game. It is a legacy game. You have to keep playing with the same players. So it's not one that hits the table as often at my house as maybe it would for other players. So a game that I have pulled out again and again and bragged about to my friends and told them, you need to play this thing. A game that's kind of midweight, I would say, in terms of the strategy level, the complexity level, is Lunar Rush from Dead Alive Games. I actually have another game, a prototype from Dead Alive that just came in today as I'm recording this. So I'm excited to see what that's all about. Lunar Rush is a gorgeous game. I've got the deluxe edition. It has great components, and I didn't even upgrade all the components. There are further upgrades that I didn't go for when I ordered this game. But you're combining a dynamic marketplace with worker placement and engine building and a bidding mechanism where you're spending victory points in order to determine which player is going to go first. That, I think, is such a stressful, tense part of the game, and you can bluff the other players, which is a mechanism that I love. It just combines so many elements of games that I really like into really a thematic, cohesive package with, like I said, great components and the strategy that you're using to bid on routes to determine when your resources are going to get to the moon or get to Earth is just, I think it's so much fun. We are talking about a great combination of components. It's very thematic. You're traveling from the Earth to the moon and back again. You're bringing resources back and forth. You're selling those resources in a dynamic market. You're upgrading your base in order to obtain more valuable resources. You've got the engine building component, the marketplace component, and that marketplace, like I said, is dynamic. And then you've got that bidding element where you can bluff the players, where you can You're really determining when your materials are going to arrive at their destination. It's adjustable in terms of its difficulty. There's lots of modules that you can add to it, so it's flexible. As you get more familiar with it, it can become more complicated. Just a fantastic little game that I'm surprised more people aren't talking about. Honestly, I think Dead Alive Games has knocked it out of the park with Lunar Rush, and this one was my favorite of the year. In fact, I can't wait to play it again. I've got some friends coming over tomorrow, and I'm hoping to teach them how to play. So, Lunar Rush from Dead Alive is my number one favorite game of the year, with a Board Game Geek rating of 8.0, and maybe it should be even higher than that. So what a great year for games. I posted probably more than 52 videos. I've certainly played more than 52 games. I've played some great games this year, and so I've been so excited to share them with you. There were a few disappointments along the way. I mean, usually my reviews are positive, but that's because if I don't like a game at all, I'm not going to really talk about it at all. And one of the biggest disappointments, I think, was Chicken versus Hot Dog. I was so excited to play a dexterity game with a chicken and a hot dog character, but the pieces were so poorly weighted that none of the challenges would really work in that game. So that was my biggest disappointment maybe of the year, but Lunar Rush really drowned out all of those in terms of how much fun we had when we played it. So thanks so much for joining me throughout 2023. Looking forward to 2024. If you have any questions or comments, if you have some ideas about your favorite games of 2023 that maybe I didn't get to, that I didn't talk about today, please leave them in the comment section below the video. You can, of course, email me at brian@brainsongames.ca. That's the website. Brainsongames.ca is the website. That's where future episodes will go. The previous ones are already up there. Brains on Games is the Twitter handle and the Facebook page and the Instagram feed. So we're all over the place. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to be notified of future ones, you can head on over to YouTube and click that subscribe button. Thanks for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you next time.